What's going on? Welcome back to DCD Podcast, episode number 8. Joined by the Eggman himself, Purple Swordfish. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Andy. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Thanks for referring to me as Eggman. I guess that's a thing now. How are you?
Good.
How's your week?
Pretty solid. Gotta start off with rest in peace, Robbie Rotten and John McCain.
Yeah, John McCain, that's a huge loss. I'm not really familiar with Robbie Rotten. I feel bad now.
Yeah.
Can you
Rest
enlighten
in
me?
peace. Didn't really do anything. Watched a couple of movies. That's about it. Worked.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're recording this. Your work schedule is pretty heavy this week, so we're recording this
Yep.
one definitely last minute. But it's going to be out on Sunday. I can feel it. It's going to happen.
It's Sunday right now.
Hey, it is Sunday right now. I do want to give everybody out there a huge thank you, whether you watch the podcast or listen to it, or maybe both if you're an insane person. But we love insane people here. This month, we officially beat the first month that we ever did the podcast. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Andy, any thoughts on the progress?
I don't get the numbers.
I could give you the password so you could.
I specifically told you I don't want the numbers.
Oh, that's right. You said you don't want the numbers. Well, yeah, I was pretty pleased. Like the first month, we had a really good month. The first 2 episodes did really well, and then they kind of went down. But I don't know how or why or when. But there was this day I logged in this past week. We had the best download day ever, and it's like it's like multiple people went back and downloaded every single episode. It was kind of weird.
I did do something with the podcast, though.
What's that?
I blocked our first Twitter account with our Twitter.
Really? Who is this
Yeah.
account? Was it me?
No, that verified actor that likes all our tweets that has hashtag podcast in it.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about, but I
got
don't.
tired of seeing it, so I blocked it. It just liked all our tweets that had hashtag podcast, didn't follow. So obviously it's bot.
I think it's pretty funny though that you could just mute, right? But you're like, screw it. I'm going all the way. I'm blocking.
That guy
this.
wants to listen to the podcast. Well, too bad.
I highly doubt that he listens to the podcast, and it's kind of interesting, like how hard it is to get people. With a subscriber base of over 1,900, you would think I could get a little more traction, right? And then you've got multiple channels where when you add them all up, I mean, you've got me beat by far, and it's been quite the challenge. But hey, it's all about the climb. That's what Miley Cyrus said. Hannah Montana, the movie. I went back and rewatched that, by the way. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Anyway, Andy, speaking of movies, why don't we get into one of your topics, the remake of a classic horror film. And I would like to get your thoughts. Well, I didn't know they were remaking it, but I did watch the trailer. It was
Suspiria.
A little scary. Yeah, Suspiria.
Classic horror movie. I was just going to ask you if you liked, not just horror movies, but in general, movies getting remakes.
The funny thing is, I struggle to think of many movies that have been remade that were better than the original. Like, I know there's a couple, like The Thing, I know is one that most people would consider the remake better than the original. That's what I've heard. I'm not very familiar with the movies. Okay, no. But I don't know, man.
Actually, I think The Thing, everyone thought it was a remake, but it was actually it was a sequel or a prequel. So, just letting you know. One that I know you probably don't even know it's remade is Scarface. Is a remake.
I did not know that.
The OG Scarface from like the 30s.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say like the first Ocean's, was it Ocean's 11? Was that the one that was a remake and it was like a Rat Pack movie? And yeah, so I mean, I guess that one was better.
Wait, infinitely better.
I just feel like there's so many remakes that end up being worse. And I feel like the other thing too, and this is something that just kind of bothers me in general, is like people acting like it's just a stupid phrase that's become really popular, and I don't even think people think about it when they say it, but like, have you ever seen somebody do a remake of something and they're like, they're ruining my childhood? Like, that argument always just kind of annoys me, because it's like, it's not destroying what was. It may not be a good representation of the original source material, and maybe you shouldn't like it on its face, but it's certainly not ruining what happened. I do want to check out the, I guess you can't call it a remake, it's more of a reboot, but the Power Rangers reboot, the movie, I do want to check that one out, because I did like the one that they remade, not the remake, rebooted it like a year ago. But I feel like a lot of remakes are worse than the original. Like things like the Amityville Horror that I was talking about last week. Like, that was awful. It was honestly, it was a little bit of a disgrace compared to the original. It wasn't even average. It was just bad. How do you feel about remakes?
A lot of them are dumb.
I think that's the other thing too. And
also, they try to remake something and change the premise, and that makes it worse.
And that's not a remake then, you know?
Or they'll like slightly change it. There's another remake that got announced that I'm trying to find that has an all-female cast instead of the original. I can't remember what it is. Dang it. I'm trying to Google it. I don't know what it is.
Is it the New Oceans movie? No, that's not it.
No.
Ghostbusters?
Recently that... No. It's not out yet. There's something recently that there's supposed to be a remake with female characters. I could just be speaking at my ass.
Yeah, I really don't know. I seem to remember somebody telling me something like that, but I can't remember what movie it was. I don't know.
Oh, Terminator. I think it's Terminator.
Oh, that was Sergeant Asskicker. That was, shout out to him. But yeah, he was talking about an all-female remake of Terminator, or maybe it's a reboot. I don't mind reboots. I think reboots are necessary. So things like Spider-Man, like, I know in 10 years they'll probably have another reboot of the Spider-Man franchise, and you know, there'll eventually. What?
I think they finally got it right.
What do you mean?
With like this one, the new Spider-Man's way better than Garfield.
I would agree with that. I mean, I didn't really like the Garfield Spider-Man movies that much. I went into them really high hopes, so maybe that might be part of it.
And the Maguire ones are really underrated.
They get a lot of hate for,
especially Spider-Man 3. It gets way more hate than it deserves.
I don't think that Spider-Man 3 on its face was a terrible movie. I don't think it was the best of the trilogy. I really feel like they hit the high point in 2. I think that the very original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie did about as good of a job as you could do. Okay, I realize it wasn't spot on, but about as good a job of you to staying true to the comic, but also being a movie. Because they couldn't stay 100% true to the comic and still be a movie. There's just things that they couldn't do. It just wouldn't work.
Speaking of Spider-Man, apparently Tom Hardy signed on to do 3 Venom movies before the first one's even released.
I think that makes sense. That doesn't surprise me, but I don't know if there will be another Venom movie. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to say, man. You know, like I guess it depends on how well this one does. They do that all the time, though. I mean, it even works that way with video games. A lot of times, video games, they originally are kind of greenlit for a trilogy based on how the first one does, and then
jinx themselves like the Dark Universe, Cinematic Universe. Before the first movie, they're like, we're a movie universe, and then The Mummy comes out, absolutely craps the bed.
Yeah. Are you talking about the latest Mummy with Tom Cruise? You know what's funny is I did not know this. They made an indie game that is based on the last Mummy movie, and it's actually really, really good. So it's kind of sad in a way because, it's associated with this terrible movie, but this video game is really good. But in the video game, the main character that you play as is not Tom Cruise, as you would think. And I found out that this is just crazy to me. Tom Cruise has a clause in every single movie contract that he does that if they do a video game based on the movie, they cannot use his likeness in any way. I just thought that was weird. I wonder why.
Maybe if the game's bad,
one movie that he was in that got a video game that I think to this day is still a pretty darn good video game is the Mission Impossible game on N64. Came out a little bit after the original movie with Tom Cruise. And it doesn't follow the movie to a T, but there are moments like, that moment where like he's suspended in that room and trying to go through all. There's a section in the game that's like that. Like there's a couple call outs to the movie, but it's still a little bit different. But yeah, the character in that was just like a generic guy who kind of looked like Tom Cruise, but wasn't
Generic
Tom
white
Cruise.
guy.
Yeah, generic white dude, brown hair, brown eyes. Just, it's not Tom Cruise, but it's, you get the idea. It's a really good game, though. Really good game.
Yeah.
Got delayed a bunch of times. Didn't come out with the original movie release, which usually is a kiss of death. But, hey, you know what else we got out of those Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, by the way? All the video games based on those were really good.
Spider-Man 2. Beats 2.
Did you play Spider-Man 3 on the maybe Xbox 360? And oh, I love that game. It was really good.
Spider-Man 2 is best Spider-Man game.
Probably.
Until next month. Until like 2 weeks from now.
Dude, you want to talk about a PlayStation exclusive that really is like knocking it out of the park. That game is it. I was watching
God of War
gameplay of that. Well, yeah, I know, but I'm talking about like God of War. Let's be real. It's not mainstream. Like
it was the most popular game on Twitch when it came out.
Well, I get that. I'm talking about like if I show God of War to my mom, she doesn't know who Kratos is, right?
You don't know.
Everybody knows who Spider-Man. She might, because I had a God of War when I worked at GameStop. I came home one day and I had the God of War mask. It's like a full Halloween mask that they gave us, made out of like silicone or whatever. But I'm telling you, man, Spider-Man's mainstream. Like that casual gamers will go out and buy a Spider-Man game if it's good. So that's a home run for Sony. And I wish it would come to Xbox, but I get the reasoning behind it.
Sony.
I know, but I really like. I always prefer to play on Xbox just for achievements.
You played the last Spider-Man game?
Which one was that?
The Amazing Spider-Man 2?
No, I did not play that. I didn't play it. It didn't look very good to me.
Yeah, it was bad.
There hasn't been a good Spider-Man game in a while. I mean, Spider-Man 3 was okay. It wasn't as good as 2. I enjoyed Spider-Man 3.
Our last game was good with Spider-Man's Marvel vs. Capcom.
Those games to this day are still fun and easy to pick up and play, but difficult to master. Like, my wife had a fun time playing that one time. So Andy, you looking forward to the Suspiria remake or no? You gonna watch it?
I mean, I watch everything.
Okay. Maybe we could both watch it and do like a movie review on the podcast of it. That might be cool. I don't know.
I watched a couple of movies this week.
What'd you watch?
The Spy Who Dumped Me.
Okay.
It's solid, I guess.
Okay.
As good as and then Mile 22. That was actually super surprising. The ending's kind of disappointing, but I would check it out if I were you.
All right.
And then Black Klansman, which is the best Spike Lee movie in a while.
Yeah. Spike Lee. Fun. Never been a Spike Lee fan. Sorry. Never been a Spike Lee fan.
Not played 2K14 or 15.
Ooh, I know this is gonna sound crazy, and I might have some people coming after me with pitchforks, but that's
freaking and vibing.
That's one of the reasons why I was not really into those games. I bought both, but I believe 2K15 might be the last 2K that I purchased, I think. And I remember playing it and I said, this is just not, it's not for me.
I mean, nothing against Spike Lee, it's just they're bad.
What do you mean?
The games themselves are bad. 2K.
Well, you know, it's one of those things where I feel like NBA 2K, and I guess this will kind of be a good segue into our next topic, but which is a listener question. But, you know, I feel like the NBA 2K series kind of passed me by. I used to be a huge fan of it, played the first one, owned 2K1 on Dreamcast, was a big fan of it, used to skip school, stay home and play NBA 2K1. Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I still got good grades, though, so don't hate me. But then I got NBA 2K3 for Xbox, the original Xbox, and it was one of the first games that launched with Xbox Live.
Wait, you were a 2K fan and not a Live fan back in the day?
No, I was a big 2K fan because I had a Dreamcast. I was a big Dreamcast guy. So then when I got my original Xbox, NBA 2K3 was one of the first Xbox Live games out there. And I had that. I was ranked top 50 in the world in NBA 2K3 on Xbox. So I was really big into that game, and I kept playing them. Just kept playing them every year. And then it was about the mid-2010s where I just... I feel like the game passed me by. I stink at them. I'm not good at them anymore. I never feel like I'm completely in control, if that makes sense. Like with Madden, when I'm running around and I'm juking and doing all that, like I feel like I'm in control. With NBA 2K, I don't feel that way anymore. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just I didn't adapt to them using the analog stick more for controls. I'm not sure. But I feel like the franchise just passed me by. And every once in a while, maybe every couple of years, I'll go out and I'll buy it when it's on sale. But I never stick with it, and I always end up just selling it. So NBA 2K, every year people ask me, are you going to get NBA 2K? Nope. I'm thinking about maybe trying Live. I tried Live 2 years ago when it was $20. I gave it a shot. But I didn't like that either. I just didn't find... I guess I'm just not a basketball video game fan anymore, as sad as that is. I used to be... I used to play that more. I haven't played Playgrounds. I was a little sour, man. I sent off for a press code for that game, and they didn't send me one. Rip. I was like, ouch. Anyway, yeah, rip indeed. So, you don't like 2K, NBA 2K anymore? Or were you ever into it, Andy? Oh, okay.
You know, audio-friendly podcast. I don't know. I was super into 2K. I was shaking my head to answer those questions.
True.
I was super into 2K, and then, you know, they're not good anymore. I would say the same thing about Madden. I would say the same thing about all sports games. Besides NHL, all of them are going downhill.
I mean, I think this year's Madden has been pretty good, but
it's still not like...
There's still a lot that can be improved upon, and, you know, I don't know, man. It's a tough one for me. I also try to keep in mind that if I were to go back and play some of these games that I'm very nostalgic about, they'd probably feel like rubbish nowadays, but I could be wrong on that. With that, it's a good segue, I think, into our first and only listener question from Spoon Sandwich, I should say, on Twitter. Great follow, good friend of the podcast. He asks, do you think there will ever be another NCAA football game? Do you think EA will bring it back? And do you think 2K would do a better job, prospectively, of bringing it back? Andy, I'll let you start.
No.
Oh my God. It's, you know, if you listen to the podcast and you wonder, I wonder if Andy's like that in person, he is. How did you like it, Andy? It was okay. What do you want to do, Andy? I don't know. I don't care.
I don't.
Yeah, it's just you don't get much out of them sometimes, but it's Andy.
I mean, I'm just being honest. I don't think they're going to make a new one.
Enjoy.
Ever.
So...
The NCAA is already... There's more stuff the NCAA has to change before a video game comes out.
I agree with you there. I think you have a good point there. And so let's just say all that was removed. Okay, would you rather? So all the politics, all the financial stuff, all that's cleared up. and you are the NCAA, and you can either license it to EA or 2K, but you got to pick one. Which one would you pick?
EA.
Okay. Why?
It would make almost triple the amount of money.
I agree with you there. So to go with my take on this, I'm hopeful, but I also realize that there's the realistic side to it, where because of that lawsuit brought forth by, I always forget the guy's name. He was a basketball player who washed out and was supposed to be a big prospect, but never really panned out. But nevertheless, him and some other people sued the NCAA, and since then they just haven't been able to make a football game. I'm hopeful that it will happen. I know there's somebody who's going to be an actually, they're making a college football game. There is a group there's supposedly a group that's working on game. Well, there's one that's working on a console game. They did crowdfunding.
It's a mobile game. Did you see the trailer for it? It's a mobile game.
Okay, I didn't see the trailer for it. First off, I want to be really clear, and I've said this on Twitter, so it's probably not news to all of you guys, but I think those guys were like literally, they should be investigated. They were not showing where any of that financial, like all that money people were sending them each month, they were asking for like recurrent donations on a monthly basis. And none of that was ever shown where it was going. But that's just my take on it. I don't think it'll work. And by the way, it doesn't even have the NCAA license. You would have to go in there and create all the logos and create all the players and do all that. And I remember a day, I don't know if you do, Andy. I remember a day where with NCAA football, you could get a memory card for a PS2, hook it up to a PC, download the rosters on it, plug it in, boom, you had all the names. Now, I get that that's probably part of why the lawsuit happened, is those rosters. And like, let's just be, well, yeah, I maybe not. But my point in all of this is, I don't think it'll ever happen again. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened already. Because EA has to be losing money on it. What?
I think other stuff has to happen first.
I agree with you. I think that they have to figure out what they're...
game, the athletes got to get paid.
I agree with that. I
mean, I don't know. Like, even listeners, I don't care what your standpoint. Athletes should be paid. There was like a thing I saw with the Alabama stadium upgrades. They could pay every single player on the team $50,000 a year for the next 10 years instead of upgrading the stadium, which is already one of the best stadiums. Like, even you throw in NFL stadiums, it's better.
No, I agree with the idea that they should get some kind of compensation. I think the question is how much. I think the other question is, what about, okay, so it's easy to say that players that go to Alabama should be paid. What about the kid who goes to Alcorn State? What about the kid who goes somewhere like UCF where they literally run the football program at a loss a lot of years? Until they got like really big last year and played Auburn, UCF would lose money on their football program. So, I mean, like, it's one of those things. And then if you're going to pay the players, why even have college sports at that point? They're not amateurs. I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's a really weird issue, and there's a lot of different lenses that you could look at it through. I don't think there's going to be another college football game. I would like to see it come back. And if it does come back, I would like to see it come back through EA. And the reason why is, one, I thought EA did a terrific job with the NCAA football games when they had the license. I used to buy it every year. I wouldn't buy Madden every year necessarily when I was in college, but I would always buy NCAA football. I found it to be more fun just because every game matters. And the other reason is, if there was an NCAA football game made by EA, you could immediately like import draft classes from NCAA to Madden. And I thought that was the other really fun thing about NCAA and Madden and how they interacted was you could, like, you know, if you were 20 years into your NCAA franchise, you could get 20 years into your Madden franchise and port the draft class over. So
you can do that now.
Really?
You can make custom draft classes of Madden 19.
Well, I mean, but I'm talking about what I'm saying is, like, if I got 6 years into my NCAA
I mean, I know
dynasty,
what you're saying, but like you can do it.
I know, but like what I'm talking about is I still to this day remember I picked UCLA in NCAA football 2002, okay? And I played super deep into it, like 10, 15 years into it. It was a lot of fun because I would get attached to the players. When they would go to the NFL, I could port them over and play with them in Madden, and I thought that was cool. But, you know, that's not there anymore because there's no college football game to build that with. I don't know. I miss it. But I would say I hope it comes back. I don't think it will, but if it does happen, it's got to be through EA. Please, like, make it happen. Someone who has power to make it happen.
It'll happen eventually.
And then in the meantime, I guess you can try to do what I did, which is try to find a copy of NCAA 14, which is very hard to do without paying a lot of money. And when I did find one, it didn't work. So, yay. Thanks, eBay.
I bought it digitally on Microsoft Store for $20.
I know, but you can't buy digital anymore. They pulled it off.
Too bad.
I know. That's what I'm saying. But Jared, thank you for the question, man. I appreciate it. And thanks for listening to the podcast every week.
But before we get past that, speaking of college football,
yeah,
thoughts on Urban Meyer suspension and how corrupt the NCAA is with that.
Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna let it rip because controversy creates cash, in the words of the great Eric Bischoff. I think Urban Meyer is a two-faced, disingenuous person. I think that because of what he did at Florida, I think he knew that Aaron Hernandez was up to all kinds of unscrupulous activities and probably didn't report it. And I think that the way he left Florida, I'm not a Florida Gators fan at all. I don't even like the Florida Gators. So please don't think that I'm a spurned Gators fan. I think that what he does is he uses people. I think he uses people, and I think he uses football programs. And he goes and he does it for as long as he can until it gets hard, and then he runs for the hills. And that's what he did in Florida. Oh, I need to have more time with my family. Translation, I don't want to have to work hard anymore, because he was a big beneficiary of Ron Zook's excellent recruiting at Florida. So when he left them holding the bag, it was kind of an earlier version of what Jimbo Fisher did to FSU, where to me I was like, this guy's kind of shady. What he did at Ohio State confirms it to me. I think it was incredibly short-sighted of him to not apologize to that lady who was married to one of his assistant coaches that was committing domestic violence acts. And today, you know, when domestic violence is such a big issue, which it should be, you know, he comes across as very disingenuous. He didn't even apologize to her until I think today. I mean, and then also the suspension
is complete.
If a player, if a player got caught doing something like that, they'd suspend him for the year.
Todd Gurley got suspended 4 games for selling $3,000 worth of autographs.
Mm.
Dez Bryant got suspended 10 games
for lying
about meeting up with Deion Sanders.
Whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Banned.
I'm sorry.
Didn't AJ Green get suspended for selling a jersey?
4 games for selling jerseys.
And Urban Meyer knows about domestic violence, does nothing, got 3 games. I think he's one of the highest paid coaches in the NCAA. I honestly, this is just, and I know this is going to be controversial, and I have nothing against Ohio State. I'm not like a Michigan Wolverines fan or anything. I think Urban Meyer's a scumbag.
Matt Miller brought up a good point. You know who that is? He's the lead football scout, Bleacher Report. He said this would be a great for 30 for 30 on the 2008 Florida Gators. That Urban Meyer Tim Tebow, Janoris Jenkins, the Pounceys, Aaron Hernandez, Will Hill, Riley Cooper. They had the Cam Newton stole a laptop that year and kicked off the team.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I just feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. And I feel like Urban Meyer is not a good dude. This confirms it to me. And like I said, not a Gators fan. Don't hate Ohio State. I think they have cool uniforms. By the way,
the title for that would be called "The Sinners and the Saint."
That's a good one.
Because Tim Tebow, and then all this.
I mean, I think Tim Tebow is probably the one person out of all those that you listed that I can't really find anything wrong with. There's a couple others in there that I don't have a whole lot to really go off of, but I mean, Aaron Hernandez, come on, man. Also, that Janoris Jenkins thing, that was really crazy, wasn't it? Like, when that got reported, I was like, what is happening?
That 2008 Florida Gators team had 24 players drafted.
It's a good team. I think the majority of those guys were recruited by Ron Zook, though.
They had Percy Harvin, Chris Rainey.
Oh, Percy Harvin. Remember him? Chris Rainey.
Speaking of Chris Rainey, played for the Bucks, running back.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty
You're
sure.
You're thinking of Bobby Rainey.
Bobby Rainey. Sorry.
Different guy. I don't even think they're related.
Speaking of Bucks running backs,
yeah.
Who do you think wins the job? What's his name? Peyton Barber. Because Peyton Barber's having a great preseason. I know
he is.
Peyton Barber's looking great.
I mean, Peyton Barber had a couple good games last year. I think Charles
wins the job.
I think it's going to be running back by committee. I think that Peyton Barber is going to be starting games. I think he's earned that chance. I want to be very clear. I'm not like some of my fellow Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans where I think the guy's going to light the world on fire, because there are people out there who think he's going to be like the next Barry Sanders if you listen to him. I mean, I'm over-exaggerating. I'm speaking in hyperbole
he had a couple
here.
Games last year.
He did have a couple.
For 380 yards last year.
He had a couple really, really solid games when given the opportunity. So I like the fact that he's a young player who came in, got an opportunity, and he thrived. I'm behind an offensive line that on the left side was a train wreck. So it's very hard to run the left side.
Quarterback.
Did not have a very good quarterback. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he does the best he can, but, I would consider, if Ryan Fitzpatrick was a starter, I'd say he's a bottom 10 in the league as far as a starter. So, I think Barber starts. I think Sims will kind of resume the pass-catching back specialist. It's a shame that guy never became more. I really had high hopes for Charles Sims. I thought he could potentially become pretty close to an every down back. But I will say this. Look out for a young man by the name of Ronald Jones, because Ronald Jones has shown some proficiency catching footballs. Contrary to... He caught a really nice one the other night. So Ronald Jones, his biggest issue in camp has been he's been struggling to learn the playbook and the schemes. And I think that's something that can come with time. But I think from a talent perspective, Ronald Jones is probably the most raw talented, like from a raw talent standpoint. I think he's the most talented guy on that roster. I think by the middle of the year, Ronald Jones, you'll be seeing a lot more of him. But I think day one, I don't know.
I know he's hurt. I know he's on the IR, but I have no idea when he's coming back.
I don't know that he's coming back this year, and it's a real shame because I believe his contract is up after this year. I could be wrong on that.
Apparently, according to the article, their Cooters gave Peyton Barber the starting job.
It makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, he's certainly earned it. He's played well in the preseason. He obviously looked really good in camp, and yes, this is Charles Sims' last year with the Buccaneers. He signed a 1-year, $1 million deal after his rookie contract because he just really didn't show a lot in his first couple of years, unfortunately. And it does look like
he always had the hype though. Every year, it seems like everyone's like, Charles, this is his year. This is his year.
I think honestly, he might have to take the Michael Pittman route, where Michael Pittman, when he wasn't really workable as a running back anymore, became like a bottom of the depth chart receiver. Because I mean, that's the only thing that Charles Sims does really well right now is catch footballs. He's great in the open field too. He could juke you out of your shoes, but I don't know.
Speaking of injured players and one coming back, this is your topic, but I'm leading into it.
Oh, Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck.
So I thought this would be interesting just because I've found the whole Andrew Luck saga incredibly fascinating. So number one, I felt like they drafted the guy, and he was immediately one of the better quarterbacks in the league in terms of leading that team to much greater results than were anticipated. And then the shoulder injury happens. And I'll be honest with you, man. Last year when I was doing another podcast covering the NFL, I ran a poll, and most people felt like he was done. Like that his career was probably over. Because he kept coming back and saying, I'm having pain throwing. The owner called him out for his mental toughness, which is almost unheard of. And then now, I was in the camp where I thought, I don't know if he'll ever be able to come back. He's looking pretty good in the preseason now, though.
Played today, went 8 for 10, 90 yards, and a touchdown.
I think it's going to be an interesting one. What if he comes back and he's just as good as he was? Because the Colts last year were not a terror.
Just as good. But like he's literally the Colts, though. Like, without him.
The Colts did okay last year without him. Like, they played a lot of hard games. Like, they didn't get blown out every week. Right? They weren't... They had a couple...
He's a game changer, though.
Like, I don't know, man.
With them, they a potential playoff team. Well, not now, but back then, before he got injured.
It'll be interesting to watch.
Because they're not... They're maybe not even the best... Like, maybe they're the worst team in their division.
Texans, Jaguars,
I mean,
Titans.
It's really an argument between them and the Texans being worse, in my opinion.
The
Jaguars 1, Titans 2, my mind.
It might be one of the more interesting divisions in the NFL this year because you have Deshaun Watson, who looked good enough last year, not great, okay.
He had a 9% touchdown percent. His numbers are gonna go down. He's not gonna, obviously. He's gonna regress. No quarterback ever has technically that's the greatest football season ever by a quarterback. That percentage, and he also had like the worst completion percentage ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that I don't think it was sustainable. But that's just that's just my take on it.
Then you have Mariota in the new offense. Last year, I think they were 29th in pace of offense, and their new guy coming in from the offensive coordinator from the Rams, which was first in pace of offense.
Well, it's proving time. It's time for Marcus Mariota to prove to everybody that he can be that elite quarterback. I'm really tired of seeing it. Every time I talk about Marcus Mariota in one of my streams, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, the guy's he's underrated," and the system that he operates in, that's what holds him back. And I just don't feel that to be the case.
You can't have that excuse this year.
Yeah, I mean, now that excuse is gone. So
they have a head coach from the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan coaching tree.
Yeah.
The tree that's currently like the best offenses in football.
See, I'm not really a big Marcus Mariota fan. And I don't say that as a Bucs fan because it's like, oh, man, I'm glad they took Winston over Mariota. I'm not a big Winston fan. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that. But I think it will be an interesting division to watch. I think just like the NFC South, you could see maybe 2, maybe 3 playoff teams from the AFC South. That'd be kind of cool.
I mean, I think the Saints and the Falcons make the playoffs easily. Just which one's wild card?
Well, we know the Bucks won't. So the Bucks will enhance everybody's record. You see, because that's what happened last year. Is the Bucks, they enhanced the Panthers and the Saints.
The Orioles are this year.
Yeah.
The Orioles graciously donating their wins to the Red Sox, which have 90 wins now. Have to throw that in there eventually.
The Bucks are the Sacramento Kings of the NFL, where the Sacramento Kings get beat up by everybody in the West every year, and everybody in the West has these great records because they get some nice wins from teams like Sacramento. But yeah, man. What do you think about Andrew Luck? Do you think he's gonna come back? You think maybe he's done? Think it's something in between?
I think he comes back, but he's not going to be back to where he was in maybe a year or so. It also depends if he gets re-injured.
That's a big question too. Will
because,
he?
You can't I can't be out there and be like, oh, he's done, because everyone thought Peyton Manning was done, and he has the most touchdowns in a single season ever after that injury.
That was one of the weirdest comebacks ever. And the reason I say that is Peyton Manning before and after the injury.
Do you think he's a Hall of Famer before the injury?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He could have retired right then and there, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean,
he's easily first ballot.
Yeah, now, no question. But, I mean, I think even then, for me, it was no question first ballot Hall of Famer.
Do you think Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer? First ballot?
No question. No question about it.
I was thinking about this the other day. I think he's the most underrated quarterback ever.
I mean, I think when he's done playing, and scary enough, I feel like he could get quite a few more years.
Yeah.
I think when he's done playing, people are going to look back. So number one, I firmly believe he'll be remembered as the greatest New Orleans Saint of all time.
Easily.
And the fact that he brought New Orleans one Super Bowl.
The most meaningful Super Bowl in NFL history, probably.
I would agree with that. And I think that Drew Brees could have won. If you put Drew Brees on the Patriots and he won just as many Super Bowls there, the one in New Orleans would have still meant more. Yeah. I think it's weird. It's kind of like when LeBron won the one championship in Cleveland. It's like that means more for his legacy because it was in Cleveland. And with New Orleans, I feel like Drew Brees winning that Super Bowl, that pretty much was the icing on the cake for a Super Bowl career. But then, I mean, the stats. The stats are unbelievable. He might break a lot of the Marino and Favre records by the time he's done.
I think
he
goes back to the Chargers and wins one.
What about poor Phillip Rivers, dude? That's a quarterback that I think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. I really do. But I really hate that he hasn't won a Super Bowl.
It's the most I don't know. He had LT for a good while. It's
never came together. Never came together.
Recently, just every year they get injured.
I thought the best shot they had was when they had Norv Turner as coach, but he got hurt in the playoffs. That was a heartbreaking one. But I don't know, man. Maybe it'll happen for poor Phillip Rivers out there. Do you think Drew Brees is a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like he's unbelievably underrated.
He's overshadowed though. An era of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady.
I guess, but I think that there's just a lot of casual fans out there.
A bigger, by the end of his career, Big Ben will be respected more than Drew Brees.
That makes me sad. That makes me sad because I don't want to take anything away from Ben Roethlisberger, but I'm gonna just be blunt. If we took Ben Roethlisberger and put him in New Orleans doesn't make the playoffs.
Well, Big Ben right now, he has arguably the best wide receiver in the league. The person I believe is the best running back in the league. I was
Check
talking
and
this
check.
with I was talking with this friend. Just think about how many great wide receivers Big Ben has played with.
He's had a
He's played with
lot
Hines
of
Ward,
yeah.
Antonio Brown, Mike Wallace in his prime, Emmanuel Sanders,
Plax in his prime.
Plaxico Burress before he shot himself.
Some good running backs too.
Yeah.
Willie Parker. They got a couple good years out of Willie Parker. Jerome Bettis towards the end of his career. He played with him.
Yeah, Heath Miller.
Yeah.
They had,
also, let's just be real. Like, a lot of those Steelers defenses.
Oh, yeah. Troy Polamalu.
Were capable of carrying.
He had an amazing rookie season, though. I'll give that to him.
He did, but my point is, I hate to see, like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people, like, will come in my streams. They'll be talking about top 5 QBs, top 5. And they'll list top 5 QBs and Breeze isn't in there. I'm like, get out of here. They'll have, like, Deshaun Watson number 4, and you don't have Drew Brees in there. And I'm like, well, that's just ridiculous to me.
I kind of made a rule, no talking about your fantasy team or whatever.
Uh-oh.
But I want to get your thoughts on this. The first quarterback that went in my fantasy draft was Big Ben.
Injury prone, doesn't put up a lot of fantasy points. I mean, if I had to pick one fantasy quarterback to start, Cam Newton's not a bad play. But I would say Drew Brees, Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers would be another good one. I mean, if I'm going to take a quarterback high, it's going to be one of those guys. I always felt like quarterbacks were the easiest to replace in terms of production. Like, you could pick up Jay Cutler in fantasy football and get points out of Jay. Yeah, I want to make this clear. Only fantasy football.
I never draft quarterback early.
Me neither. I think it's all about running backs and wide receivers.
Like my quarterback this year is in my big league, the one I'm a commissioner in. I have good old Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback.
I mean, high risk, high reward. Pat Mahomes had some struggles, but then he also had some moments that were like equally amazing. It was like most young quarterbacks, right? But I don't know that I would take Ben Roethlisberger as a first quarterback on a board. I don't even know if he'd be my top 10 from a fantasy perspective.
He has a problem with him in fantasy. He never, guaranteed when he's at home, top 12 performance. Mm-hmm. But when he's away, he's like the worst quarterback in the league.
I could see that. I mean, it was evident when Pittsburgh had to go play Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Didn't look so good. At least from what I can remember.
I mean, speaking of fantasy football.
Yeah.
Who you liking this year in fantasy? Some underrated picks? We're in a league, 2 leagues together.
Yeah.
So this should be fun.
God, I don't want to give too much away. But, I do think there's some underrated guys out there. I talked about one earlier. I guess I'm a little bit closer to this situation than most people would be. I think there's going to be guys that will be good to stash, like a Ronald Jones, because I could see a guy like that maybe taking over the workload towards the middle of the year and, putting up some points for you. There's some guys that I like. One guy, God, I hate to give this away. I think Calvin Ridley is one that a lot of people are sleeping on.
Speaking of Calvin Ridley, if Julio gets 1,400 yards this year, he'll statistically have the greatest 5-year stretch of any wide receiver ever with receiving yards.
I mean, I believe that.
5 seasons in a row, 1,400 plus yards. He's currently tied with Marvin Harrison with the most in that stretch. So if he does it again, not touchdown wise, but receiving wise, best 5-year span in wide receiver history.
I believe it. But yeah, I really think Ridley's due for a good year, because if he really does become the second guy, the second receiver there, Well, yeah, because Sanu has been a good sleeper the last couple of years. So I could absolutely see that happening. And then I also look at some other situations where players are like maybe new situation, a new coordinator, right? But their name doesn't carry a lot because, like, so for example, I know this isn't, I don't know if most people call this a sleeper, but I think he's going to exceed expectations. Jimmy Graham used to be one of the best fantasy guys out there. Would sometimes give you production. I used to be a big Jimmy Graham guy when he was with the Saints because he'd give you production better than your receiver sometimes from the tight end spot. And I think that, going to Seattle, a lot of people really were down on him because they used him. I don't know how to say this other than just to be blunt and say they misused him. But I think him going to Green Bay, ESPN has him rated as number 6 tight end. I feel like that's way lower.
I feel like he's the only guy that has the potential this year to get to Gronk status.
Yes, I would agree with that. Another one that it's just relevant just recently, but I think this is a guy that will slip in a lot of drafts and will probably get some good production. He certainly did last year when given the chance to run with it. Adrian Peterson going to Washington. I feel like that's a really good move in terms of fantasy. I don't know how it'll work like on the actual football field. And then, who else do I have here?
I'm really liking Corey Davis. He's getting number 1 option, new offense.
Yeah. Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles always due for a good year.
I mean, I actually think he is this year.
I'm hoping because last year was supposed to be his last year. One more, OJ Howard. Not just because I'm a Bucks fan. I feel like OJ Howard, this is the year where he can kind of.
I mean, Evan Ingram is like the only rookie tight end ever to have a good year.
He looked good in camp, by the way. Evan Ingram, really good.
Yeah,
like freakishly fast. Human beings that large should not be able to run that fast.
He's basically a wide receiver that plays tight end, though.
It's scary how fast that guy is.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So who do you have as some sleepers?
I'm really liking Kenyon Drake. Roll Tide, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Go for
it. Kenyon Drake, very solid. Tight end sleeper, Trey Burton. Recently signed with the Bears. Very solid. With the new Pat Nagy offense as well. Basically, like, the Bears offense, besides Trubisky, is looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really high on Jordan Howard. Not really as much on Tariq Cohen as I probably should, just because I don't have the balls to draft a backup.
Feast or famine. With him, it's feast or famine. Either he's gonna break one or he's not. Yeah,
like he'd be good in a best ball league. Do you know what that is?
What is that?
A best ball league is they mostly do it during the off season, just to have like fun with fantasy football. What best ball is you draft your team, that you never touch it until the end of the year, and basically every single week it puts in your best potential starting lineup. So Tariq Cohen's great in that because if he blows up, throws him in the lineup. But if he doesn't, he's not in your lineup.
That's actually probably the best situation for him. Yeah.
But best ball's pretty fun. So, Royce Freeman, the new starting running back at Denver. I think he's getting overdrafted at this point. He's, I think, going in the 3rd round right now.
That seems awfully high. I don't know. I look at some of these guys that are like way, way down on ESPN's rankings. Like Willie
Kerryon Johnson is a good look because I don't know. There's always that rookie running back that surprises everyone. Kerryon Johnson, rookie from Auburn, led the SEC in rushing yards. Currently might beat out the starting position in Detroit. They traded up to get him in the 2nd round, so that's always fun to see.
What about Willie Snead? They have him really low here on ESPN. He's ranked 82nd overall amongst wide receivers, but he's going to Baltimore.
They got
needs
Crabtree.
People? Yeah, but I mean, shoot. They need wide receiver. I guess I'm the only one who remembers how good Willie Snead was before the weed. Before he got suspended, you know, I mean, it's unfortunate.
I don't really trust anyone in Baltimore, to be honest.
I get that.
Besides their defense is actually a great pickup.
Yeah, I think the defense is definitely up there, but I will say this,
the Bills
man.
week 1, and the Bills are not going to be a great offense
at all. Because AJ McCarron is he's done for a little bit, right?
Yeah. They have to start Josh Allen.
You think they're going to start Josh Allen? I thought they were going to start Peterman.
That's even better for fantasy. You know, he has
jeez.
He has like 4 completed passes all to the other team. His 4 interceptions.
That's awful.
And
that poor kid got put in a terrible situation.
Tyrod should have been benched. I don't care what you say. Tyrod shouldn't have been benched in that game.
No, that was a stupid move.
That was his 3rd interception in the season. His 3rd.
I feel like they were
bench him.
Yeah, you know, interesting thing. Side note here. So for the longest time, I feel like the Browns were underrated, right? Like I like what the Browns went out there and did. I thought they got some good moves for now, right? And some good moves for the future. So I like the Baker Mayfield pick. It's a great pick. I like getting Tyrod Taylor. You get a guy who can start now. I like Tyrod Taylor. I'm sorry, it's not Tyrod. He came out recently, and it's Tyrod. So I'm sorry about that.
He didn't come out, actually.
Or somebody asked him or something.
The owner of the team.
Well, there you go. Well, Tyrod Taylor, I really like
by the way,
that move.
If you guys are a fan of my channel, it's no longer Tyrod T-Mobile Taylor. It's Tyrod the Toolman Taylor now.
Tyrod the Toolman Taylor. Well, yeah. I like the move to pick him up. I liked going out, and I was a little bit of an overpay, but I liked them going out and getting Jarvis Landry. I feel like that will probably help more than it hurts. I do think Jarvis Landry is still overrated, but I do think that he's better than what they had. Getting Josh Gordon back will obviously help. Getting Carlos, if they can get Carlos Hyde healthy, I think a healthy Carlos Hyde is good for any football team. I would love to have him in Tampa.
Chubb, Duke Johnson.
Yeah, they got some good pieces, you know. And then they went out and they got Myles Garrett. And, you know, like they're slowly but surely building. Yeah, they're building a good ecosystem and getting all that built out for the future. But for right now, I feel like they can still go out and win 5 or 6 games. And I think that'll be good for those young players to win 5 or 6 games instead of losing 16 like last year. But I do think it's interesting that there are all these people now who are like almost overrating Cleveland and saying they're a playoff team. Like, I don't think they're a playoff team. I think they cap out. The best case scenario for the Browns is like 7-9. Like, that's everything going right. That's every 50-50 game going their way, which we know is not likely. I'd peg them at 5-11 right now. But I think the best case scenario is 7-9 if everything goes right. It's like Angels in the outfield happens, but like Angels in the end zone, I guess, right? Wasn't that one of the sequels? Like direct to tape? Like if they do that for the Browns, you know, okay, maybe 7-9. But I don't see it,
I'm
man.
Looking. The AFC wildcard's crazy. Because there's not that many good teams in the AFC at all.
God, you remember when the NFC was the one that was pretty bad?
I mean,
I remember when I was a kid, NFC was good, AFC wasn't as good. And then it went to AFC was good and NFC wasn't so good. And then it's so weird in basketball. It's like the West is always better.
I'm looking at it like the Patriots won their division with easily. I don't think anyone else in that division makes the playoffs.
You say that with your Belichick-like appearance today, by the way.
Well, yeah. In the West, the Broncos or the Broncos, the Chiefs make the playoffs.
I'm hoping for the Chargers. I'm really hoping for the Chargers.
I don't know. I feel like the Broncos win it, the division.
I think the Jaguars got the South on lock.
Oh, yeah.
That's just me, though.
I feel like the Titans come in as wild card.
Okay.
The Steelers easily win their division, and I don't think anyone else in that division makes playoffs.
Probably right.
Most likely Baltimore, but realistically, no.
They'd probably be like they were last year, outside looking in. Like
Jimmy Smith got suspended this year.
They'd probably find out like the last week of the season that they're out of the playoffs. Like I think that's what happened last year.
And then Reigning Raven will have fun.
Yeah. Hey, real quick before we move on to another topic, and listeners will have to tell me, like, what if every week for the NFL season, I'm talking about rapid fire, like I'm talking about we go down a list in like a minute each, and we make our.
We're gonna do something else. But
wait,
okay.
What are we doing?
I mean, if I say it, then we're gonna have to do it.
I was just gonna say we make our picks and see who has the better overall record at the end of the year, but you know,
doing a different mini podcast.
Oh my God, no, Andy, we can barely get this one recorded.
I'm gonna edit it. It'll be fine.
No, but we barely have time to record this thing. Crazy.
I got this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to talk about that, I guess, when we're not recording. Anyway. Totally different topic that I wanted to cover. I wanted to get your perspective on this, Andy. So Nintendo, who is probably like the most archaic video game out there, or video game company out there, like they're so like way back in the 90s and 80s with a lot of their policies, right? And it can be a little bit frustrating. As much as I like my Nintendo Switch and my wife's Nintendo 3DS, like, I kind of wish Nintendo would get with the times. But lately, they've been going on this binge of going after emulator sites. What's your take on that? How do you feel about that? Do you think emulation is a good thing or a bad thing for video games? And how do you feel about them going after emulator websites?
Emulation is good.
Okay.
I mean, but like they're going after it because they're trying to launch that whole backwards compatibility stuff on the Switch. They're bringing like SNES games over the monthly subscription, online stuff. You get like for the gold program, like with Xbox, you get games like that on the Switch. So I mean, if they want to sue them, they could do it. I mean, it's their property, but statistically, piracy promotes more sales. Like,
yeah,
it's free. The best advertisements let someone play the game.
I just don't feel like people downloading ROMs hurts their sales.
It's impossible to go out. Like, you're not gonna go out there and be like, let's try to find Castlevania, the SNES one. Let's go find the cartridge. It's gonna take you forever to find that.
I think that's part of the other problem is I find myself torn on it. So, like
Castlevania Symphony Night, the cheapest one on eBay right now is about $80.
Wait, for what system?
PS2.
Oh, well, I mean, PlayStation, that's considered one of the all-time greats, and it's also kind of a rare one at that. I don't know, like, I find myself really torn on it, because, like, emulation, if you told me they were emulating games that were currently for sale, I would say, okay, like, I get it. And that makes sense. But, and it's within their legal right. So they have every legal right to do it. So I have no problems with them doing it from a legal standpoint. And at the end of the day, downloading a ROM and playing a ROM, it is kind of theft of intellectual property, in my opinion. So I get that.
What if someone downloads Ocarina of Time, falls in love with Zelda, and then goes buys Breath of the Wild?
I mean, you're right. You're right. I don't discount that notion at all. I just find myself torn because it's part of the reason why I don't download ROMs, because I feel like I'm stealing something. But at the same time, I sit there and I go, man, you know, like, one of my favorite games of all time is WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game. And it's very hard to find because it's a disc-based game. It's a PlayStation era. And people just don't take care of stuff. It's really hard to find a good copy of that game that even plays. And then, like, don't even get me started on N64, man. Like, N64, I bought 2 systems. I couldn't get either one to work. One wouldn't power on. The other one powered on, but the video didn't work. I had one at one point that didn't read cartridges. I mean, like, it's so hard to find classic hardware. And then, like, the other thing that sucks about this from a consumer standpoint is I got the SNES Mini, and I have a friend who told me step by step how to crack it, and you could load it with all kinds of ROMs.
There's a way to crack the Xbox 360 and turn it to an emulator for everything.
I know. I get why companies want control. I get it, because it is their property and it is their right. And it's in every end user license agreement in the world that you're not supposed to emulate it. And I found out while I was researching this topic, even if you own, like if I own, what do I have? The Witcher 3 is over my shoulder. If I could download a ROM for it illegally, it's still illegal for me to do that. Even owning the game. So, I mean, I feel torn. I get the legal basis, but I hate it because, like, for example, I know I'm using an extreme example here. On the NES, one of the world famous games is incredibly rare. It's Little Samson, right? If you wanted to get a cartridge, even in the worst condition possible, you're going to spend hundreds of dollars. So, like, there's probably kids out there who, if it wasn't for an emulator, would probably never play it. There's probably people my age out there who, if it wasn't for an emulator, would probably never play it. And I don't really think they're hurting anybody. Because even if you buy a used copy, it doesn't benefit them, right? Yeah. I also got to say, Nintendo, if you want to make yourselves look really good and you take down all the emulator sites, that's fine. But put up a virtual console store on the Switch, because thus far they've said they're not doing it. And even the ones that you were talking about that are going to be part of their monthly subscription, you know that's not going to be everything. Like, what if I want to play something really weird, Andy? That isn't an Nintendo
Dream
game?
Emulator?
Yeah, like that.
See if it's on eBay. Let's check it out.
Doing eBay on the podcast now?
$450 is the cheapest one.
Well, I would probably
There's
just
three
emulate it.
$450 with 22 watching it. So that might be a good price. $1,300 and another one for $1,300.
And that's just kind of my point is someone like myself, I would never be able to buy that. So the only way I would ever experience is to emulate it. They're not selling it new. And I don't believe you can download a digital version of it anywhere.
Well, legally.
Well, no. Well, by the way, like, it is funny because I am a big fan of physical media, but I do think it's funny how, like, for example, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the PS2, Xbox console versions were very, very highly sought after and had a ginormous price tag. And then the minute they released them digital on the newer consoles, the market for it crashed. Yeah. I just wish that Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo could figure out a way, if they're going to shut down all these emulator sites, specifically Nintendo with their aggressiveness lately, figure out a way to get us digital copies of it that we can buy. I have no problem buying it, but it's got to be available. And it can't be just Nintendo stuff. Like, I want all the, and I know that's a nightmare because some of those companies don't even exist anymore. You don't even know who owns the rights to it, honestly. But I don't know. Also, Andy, we never would have gotten a really great video series from Andy on his channel if it wasn't for emulators. He played Simpsons Hit and Run. He played Legends of Wrestling. What was it? There was another one. It was like Random Fridays.
Sam B got the thing to go bumping at night.
Oh, yeah. That was the other one. Dead Island.
Voodoo.
Those were good videos, man. So yeah, that's all I had for topics this week, Andy.
I mean, there is one more thing.
What's the other thing?
How many games do you think Sam Bradford plays this year?
Oh. So he is the starter, right?
As of right now.
So he's a starter right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look at their schedule.
His backups are Mike Glennon and Josh Rosen.
What is this? Teammates fine with Sam Bradford just chewing seeds on the sideline. What is this even about?
Apparently, the Cardinals have the worst Super Bowl odds according to Vegas.
I mean, they're not too far off. Oh, I guess he just hasn't been playing. So I think Sam Bradford, if I had to put an over-under on it, if I was a betting man, which I sometimes am, I'd say I put the over-under at 6.
I'm pretty sure there's actually a Vegas thing about it.
Really? Because he has degenerative knee injuries or disease or something. Because the Vikings came right out and said, this guy has a degenerative knee condition. It's not going to get any better. There's nothing they can do about it. So I would put it at 6. What would you put it at, Andy?
The over-under?
Yeah, like if you had to, because to me, when I put the over-under at
3.
6, I'm anticipating 6 is a good bet.
4.5.
4.5. Okay. I'd probably take the over on that 4.5. I don't think he finishes the year. Do you think he finishes the year?
No. Speaking of sad injuries, to like kind of go off, Travis Frederick, horrible news. There's no timetable for him to return. Could be back week 1. Career could be over.
Well, I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for him. That one sucks. I mean, the Sam Bradford thing sucks too, because I think,
Yeah.
like, I was a big Sam Bradford fan. I thought he was gonna be
Oklahoma Heisman winner.
I mean, I like Sam Bradford. I enjoy watching him play. Yeah.
Has like one of the best seasons in NFL history.
I mean, you know, I thought he was gonna take the Rams back to being a good football team again, and it just never worked out. And
then he was on the Eagles' first stint.
Did good with the Eagles. Had a great year with the Eagles.
Amazing last year with the Vikings, even though he played like 3 games.
Yeah. Just the injuries. And it stinks because, you know, the guy probably puts in all the work. I don't think it has anything to do with work ethic or anything like that. But just bodies fail, I guess. Just
you
stinks,
think,
man.
Teddy Bridgewater starts in New York?
No, I think they're going to trade him.
I don't know. The Vikings had 3 starting quarterbacks last year that are potentially, 2 of them definitely going to be starting quarterbacks this year. One of them maybe. And now they got a new guy.
I think Teddy Bridgewater will find a home. I think he will be a starter somewhere, and I think he will be a successful starting quarterback. I don't know that he'll be one of the best in the league, but I do think that he's a solid starting level quarterback who got an injury at the worst time possible, and then the guy who was filling in for him had the best season you could ask for from a guy who was projected to be a backup in Case Keenum. I feel like New York has a really good asset that they could trade. Like, let's just say, you know, something happens with one of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and it's a team that thinks they can make the playoffs. Like, would you not kick the tires on a Teddy Bridgewater trade if you didn't have a backup that you think could start? I mean, why wouldn't you?
Nick Foles.
I mean, there you go.
Better than Dan Marino.
He's won a ring, and that's all that matters. It's all about how many rings you've won. Robert Ory is better than like 95% of NBA players, by the way.
I mean, can't dispute that. Bill Russell's the greatest of all time.
Yep.
11 and 13.
There you go.
That's the most insane career ever. 11 rings in 13 seasons.
I mean, he was in an era where
he won 8 in a row against Wilt.
I mean, it was an era where if you had a guy that size, you were probably one of maybe 2 or 3 teams that had a guy that was that size. It's
like Will Chamberlain's a psycho. Like, his statistics are absolutely insane. The dude averaged 55 rebounds in a season.
It's ridiculous to think about, but
like, which is I completely messed up that. You averaged 55 points in a season. He had 55 rebounds in one game. I think it was 23 rebounds.
I just realized that you said rebounds, and I'm like, I'm an idiot.
No, I said it, and I was going to go back and check, refix it. But he averaged 55 points in the season, which is still insane.
Yeah, man, it's crazy how how times have changed in the NBA. But, you know, they had to invent rules for Wilt Chamberlain. They had to invent rules for Shaq. So, I mean, it just goes to show you.
They're voting on a new rule.
The shot clock one? Yeah, I think that's a good move. I think it's a good move to keep things moving offensively. The NBA is really trying to get more scoring, and they've been successful at doing that with their rule changes. So I feel like that's a good one. I feel like the fans will like it.
You know, I don't know. Everyone likes Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in a game, but like the end, the score at the end of the game they won 169 to 147, which wasn't that insane of a score back then. Just teams scored a ton back then.
Yeah, still an amazing accomplishment.
I mean,
I really feel like the only player that I think ever had a shot at breaking that was Kobe. When he scored that night, no. That night that he put up 81 points, I think
Jalen Rose.
I think there was a chance. I think there was a chance that he could have.
You think that record's unbreakable?
I hate to say any record's unbreakable because there are some records that I do think are pretty close. That's one of them.
The assists in one game is unbreakable.
I think Scott Skiles' record of assists per game, I think that's probably the safest record in the NBA.
Yeah, 30 assists in one game.
Yeah. Go back and watch that game if you haven't already. It was
also 55 rebounds in one game is pretty safe.
That's a pretty safe one. Pretty safe one.
I doubt there's anyone even close recently. Not even halfway.
I also think Eric Dickerson's single season rushing in the NFL, I think that one's very, very safe. It was almost
broken.
Yeah, but
very close.
Very close, but the NFL is changing, man. It's becoming less of a running game and more of a passing game, and I just don't see it happening again. But it's about that.
Anyone beats Jerry Rice's record?
That's going to be a tough one to break, because you'd have to have a player that would play
until his 40s,
20 seasons in the NFL and be productive in almost all 20 seasons. It's pretty crazy.
1,000+ yards at the age of 41.
The only year he looked bad was his last year in the NFL. That was it.
Before we end the podcast, though, I gotta say Road Trip. We mentioned that movie the past 2 podcasts, just keeping it going.
Oh, okay. Good movie. Check it out if you haven't already. It's a good one. So
Tom Green overrated.
I liked Freddy Got Fingered. I thought it was an okay movie. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was okay. They really piled on it. Oh well. Rip Tom Green's movie career. Also, fun fact about that movie, all those skateboard stunts at the beginning, he did them all. I thought that was impressive. So, that's going to do it. Episode 8 in the books. Try it out. Real quick before we get off. We got t-shirts. You can buy DCD merch. Links in the description. We got the YouTube video version. Check that out if you haven't already, and maybe subscribe to that channel. That'd be tight. And then audio only. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and we got the website deadchannelduo.com. Working on Spotify still can't get them to accept our application. So if maybe if you're out there listening, inside. Oh my God. Okay, Andy, anything else, man, before we get out of here?
No, see you later, man.
Okay, see you guys next week.